Hi, you're listening to the Build Your Digital Community podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Bartold, the co-founder and co-CEO of The Social Snippet, a social media agency focused on business owners growing their digital communities. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things digital community building so that you can grow your network and ultimately your business. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Build Your Digital Community. I'm your host, I'm Kristina, and I'm so excited to be here today. And I have to preface this with a small story that this year I did a manifestation of 4 people I wanted on my podcast. And Kacia, you are the third of the 4 I was able to get on, and it was a 5-year plan.
Wow. Such a good reminder for people to call your shot and know that it's going to take less time than you think.
Oh, yeah, I'm so excited. So I'm Kacia Ghetmiri here, and she leads the EmpowerHER community and podcast. I've been listening to your podcast for a while, Kacia. You are such a source of encouragement for women, and I'm just so grateful to have you here with me. So thank you so much.
Kristina, I am freaking pumped to be on your show, to be connected with you, to talk about all the juice today. This is going to be so fun. So I hope everyone listening in is ready to buckle on up. I'm hyped.
Yeah. Woo! I know. I can't imagine a day where you're not hyped. But Kacia, I'd love for you to tell people how you got started in entrepreneurship and how you kind of got to getting started in the EmpowerHER community.
Yeah, so I did the thing that I think a lot of people can connect with listening into the show, where I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and then I got there and I looked around and I was like, shit, this is not what I actually want. But because we become a byproduct of the expectations of our peer group, and all of my girlfriends at the time and my then boyfriend, now husband, we're all kind of like, Kacia, this is what we do. Like, it's just like you kind of count down the days till Friday, and then you've got your weekend and you work your way up the corporate ladder. And I think that works for some people. I actually don't think that everyone should be entrepreneurs by any means. But for me, I could feel this like visceral feeling that I was on the wrong path, but I didn't know what that path was. So I would try and shove it down at first because I felt like I should be grateful for what I have. Like my last corporate job, I worked at Google. I made 6 figures. I had great income, great career trajectory, but it just wasn't right. So no matter how much money you make or how much external validation you get, if it doesn't feel fulfilling for you, then you're not winning, in my opinion. So I decided to start a business on the side, which for me, my first business was in 2014. It was in network marketing. And I actually didn't have the intention of leaving the corporate world. I started it for another stream of fulfillment and for me to be a more fully expressed version of myself. Because I worked in tech recruiting and IT project management. So I worked with software engineers, and then I hired like new grads, and like it was just so different than my actual personality. And I really just wanted to like learn how to be a more fully expressed version of myself and have something where I felt like I could make an impact outside of what I was doing work-wise. And I did it my way, which I think is a really important thing to remember for anyone listening in, is it's really easy to get caught up in how other people are doing things. And I was like, I'm just going to do this my way with my personality. I'm just going to trust that will work. And it ended up building into a really large business that it was almost like an opportunity cost situation for me to leave the corporate world because I was making more money with this side thing than I was making at my full-time job at Google. And and I say that because I did not jump and hope that the net appeared. At the time that I was building that business, my husband was in dental school at NYU, which was so expensive. And also like he couldn't work while he was in school. So I was supporting both of us. So I didn't feel like I wanted to take the risk of jumping and just hoping that I could pay our bills when it wasn't just me. And a lot of times I think that's kind of glamorized of like, look, like be a full-time entrepreneur. And I'm like, okay, but do it on the side, make sure you like it, and then evolve from there. And also don't come from this, like I didn't have to come from this place of desperation. I was building this business and it was starting to take off. And that turned into me building that several $100,000 a year. I got to speak on stages to like 10,000 people. I got to do all these really cool things. And then I got that gut feeling again about 4 years later that it wasn't aligned. This one was actually harder because by other people's definition, this was great, right? Like I was making this money and I was doing all these cool things and I had this huge team and I was good at what I did, but I didn't feel like I was challenged the way that I wanted to be challenged, and I didn't feel like I owned it, because as much as I loved that platform and it was a really beautiful like gateway into entrepreneurship for me, I didn't own my own business, which felt kind of scary because it was making a substantial amount of income, but I was like, I need to make sure that like I have my own thing. So I started a podcast because I felt confused about what was next for me. And sometimes I think like, you know, I was noticing there were a lot of podcasts at the time that I started EmpowerHER. My show is the end of 2018. And there were a lot of podcasts out there that it felt as if the host was 5 steps ahead of me. Like, ooh, back when I was in that situation in my business or in my career, here's what I did. Or in my marriage, this is how I navigated it. And I can tell you now because I'm 5 years removed. And I was like, that's helpful for sure, because it's helpful to see someone ahead of you that you can borrow belief that if they can figure out, you can too. But for me, I was craving this connection with like a girlfriend that was also ugly crying on her bathroom floor where her snot and mascara were getting together in her mouth. And she was like, what the F am I doing? Because that's how I felt. And I was like, well, this is bugging me. And sometimes I think if things aren't being represented the way you think it should, it's because you're supposed to be the representation. So I started the podcast with this very intentional, come with me, let's figure out life together type of brand around it. Took off pretty quickly. That turned into memberships, courses, events, masterminds, more speaking, merch, all sorts of random things that I'm doing now today. So it's been a lot of twists, turns, pivots, ugly cries, getting yourself back up, and then just trying to freaking figure it out as I go. And now we're here.
Oh my God, Kacia. One of the things I love that you say, and I've heard you say it many times on your own podcast, is this idea of borrowing belief from other people. And this is something that I feel is so important in our space, because I was similar in the sense where I had this career that everyone was like, oh my gosh, like you've made it, like this is great. And then when I told people, I was like, I'm not like super happy and I'm thinking about doing my own thing and I think this is what I'm going to do. What about your pension? Like, what about your benefits? And they were constantly showing me this fear, like, and it was their fear cards, right? Like they were showing me like, this is what I'm scared of. Like, I'm scared of this. But when I started listening to podcasts, and Chris was actually, Casarda's podcast was the one that kind of like pushed me over the edge. I was like, oh my gosh, these people have private jets and these people do these things from just their belief that they can do it, and they create these amazing experiences. And like, what's the difference between them and me being able to do the same thing for myself? And that belief was what kept me kind of going, where even my business partner, I'm always like, it's Chris Harder yacht energy. Like, you know, we're making this investment for our yachts. But it's like we've borrowed that in times when we've needed it.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's like, that can be used as a really powerful fuel source to help you show up to the woman listening into this, to stay consistent at the thing that you're doing. Is I just have this like core belief that you showing up, navigating whatever it is that you're going through right now, is giving somebody else proof that they can then do it too, right? Your life is literally a testimony of what's possible for other people. And so to me, it's like at the beginning stage, when you feel like you suck at something because nobody gets to skip that beginning stage, it's like, please know that somebody else, maybe it's some random girl that you're connected with from like 3rd grade on Facebook, or it's someone that you don't even know is watching you, but they need to see someone in your exact circumstances take your version of good and go for great, so that they're like, wait a second, like she did that, then I'm going to give myself permission to do it. And sometimes we just have to see it modeled to us. So it's like that aspirational person, like for you mentioning like Chris Harder, like as an aspirational person who's a few steps ahead, like that's really important. But it's also really important to have someone that's literally like one tiptoe ahead of you, that you're like, you know what, you're in the same space as me and you're figuring this out, or you have 2 kids at home, or you struggle with anxiety, or you have ADHD or whatever, and like you're figuring this out. Okay, I can do this too. And I think we forget how important, like anyone listening into this, like somebody's watching you right now, whatever it is that you're navigating through, and they're like, okay, well, she's figuring this out, and like I'm gonna use that as an inspiration to me, and that really matters.
Oh, Kacia, I love that so much. And actually, something I wanted to ask you about that I was thinking about this morning was, okay, so your podcast just crossed, was it 9 million downloads?
We're like at the time that we're recording this, we're really close to 9 million downloads. Yeah.
Okay. I believe in my heart by the time this is out in a few weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, people love the Kacia. And which is amazing. And what I was wondering from you, Kacia, is that there's so many people who have these like dreams on their heart, and they're, you know, I want to have a podcast. And I think podcasts are one of the most amazing ways, as you know, to be able to start to build that community. But I'm curious for you, like at the beginning, your numbers probably weren't 9 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm curious, how did you continue to like build that community for yourself, and also like continue that self-belief that it was coming?
So 2 parts. One is the intention of growing the show was like, I really wanted to be a fully expressed version of myself. So I had a very personal human goal of like, I'm just going to continue cranking up the volume on being more me, because I wanted that journey for myself. And so I think I knew that that would give permission to other people to have that journey as well. But I didn't just make it so focused on the numbers. Yet on the same side of that, every single tiny little milestone that I hit, I celebrated like I won the damn Super Bowl. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, instead of getting caught up in like, because when you think of like 9 million downloads, or you're waiting until some arbitrary goal to feel proud of yourself, then you're missing the whole opportunity to celebrate along the way. And also from a scientific perspective, to give yourself dopamine hits, because dopamine hits are going to keep you going. And I'm a huge proponent of falling in love with the process rather than what the process could produce. And if I would have waited, and we're talking 4 years into podcasting, that now we're at this milestone, right? Like, if I would have waited until I was here, there's no way I would have been able to show up consistently. But it was like a human goal for me, a focus on like micro little goals that I could celebrate, whether that's 10 episodes, 1,000 downloads, like, 5 people that tagged it on Instagram today that told me it impacted them. Like, I would pick like tiny little things. And the success criteria for the early season of my podcast is different than it is now. But to be honest, like, one of the things that I loved the most about when it was even smaller is every single person that tagged it on Instagram, like, I could send a voice note and hear so much about their life and develop like depth of connection. And honestly, I just can't scale that type of intimacy at this point. But it was so beautiful because I just wasn't focused on getting there. And on the other side of it, I also think it's really important when we're starting something new, whether it's a podcast or blog or posting on social media or a new business, that we connect the dots between the super unsexy, mundane things to the bigger vision. So when I started my show at the end of 2018, I always wanted to do live events, hundreds of women together in person. I always wanted to do that. So I was like, okay, how is me showing up now, putting out 2 episodes a week consistently, personally, to this day I still do this, answer all of my DMs personally. Like, okay, how is that contributing towards getting all of these women together in person? Because I think in person is the real secret sauce of everything. And I just would connect the dots. I'm like, well, these people are going to know, like, and trust me that when I do eventually come out with wanting to sell tickets to an event, they're going to want to come because they're also going to want to meet other women in this community. So I had to make that connection for myself so I could do those mundane things. Like, sometimes I don't want to show up and record, but it's the only thing I've ever done career-wise that I've never one time wanted to quit, because I was a listener of podcasts before I started my show. And I have a lot of women that come to me like, Kacia, I want to start a podcast. I'm like, okay, cool. Do you love podcasts too? Well, I don't really listen, but I feel like I should do it. I'm like, meh, bye. Like, if you don't love the platform, like, it's not going to be your thing, because it does take a long time to get the momentum going. I think there's no better platform out there than podcasting. And I could rant about this for millions of years. And I know you get it, Kristina, but it's because of the depth of connection that you get to have, but you have to be willing to show up so consistently for a really long freaking time to build that momentum. And most people stop before they get there because they're too caught up in getting to some arbitrary goal. And that's when they're going to feel proud, versus I didn't wait for anything to feel proud.
Oh, okay. I love that, because even Lindsay, I interviewed Lindsay Schwartz a few weeks ago, and she told me she didn't even check her numbers for the first year.
And that would have never worked for me. And I love Lindsay Schwartz, but I had to find, because I had to look at tiny little milestones where I would be like, 100 people listened into this whole, and then I'd visualize in my head 100 people in a room. And I would be like, oh my gosh, this is so freaking cool. Like, I'm doing it again. So like, like, some people that works for their brain, and I love to just like give different examples, because for me, I was like, I have to look at where we're at and just like make that seem super, super huge. Like, even if it's 10 people, like, picture 10 people in front of you that you're getting to talk to and how much impact and ripple is made from that. I think that's so cool. And that's something that we should celebrate,
totally.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And even some of our clients, because we do podcast management for clients too, so many of them will say like, oh, like I got 40 downloads. And I'm like, okay, but if 40 people were in the room, you turn them away? Like, you wouldn't tell them about your message. You wouldn't talk to them about your business. You wouldn't talk to them about your service. And it's
like
so
kick them out the door. Bye.
Yeah, I was like, bye. I'm not interested, because we only want it when it's over 100. We only want it when it's over 500. But that only comes when 40 people come. Like, that only comes when 40 people listen, they build know, like, and trust with you, and then they refer you to 9 million other friends.
Yeah, so true. So true. Yeah. It's like, we have to just be willing to start at the beginning and know that part of it, like, it's interesting because I know you can identify with this, and a lot of women that listen into the show can, where like the dreams that you have on your heart are so big that like, let's just put it out there. We are not yet the person that can accomplish that goal. And I think that scares a lot of people where they're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get there? And I'm like, hello, it's the space between where you are now and where you want to go. That whole time frame and that path that you need to take is going to teach you the coping mechanisms and the skills and how to build the community and the resourcefulness so that when you get there, wherever there is, you look back at the path that you took towards getting there and you're like, damn, look how far I've come. Because like we put all this pressure on ourselves. Like I have no idea, like with my big visions of things that I want to do, I have no idea how the hell I'm going to do that. But I do know that direction is more important than speed. And I'm definitely on the right path. So I'm willing to like trust that I have to build up the skills so that I can manage it. Because full transparency, Kristina, if I would have started with, you know, thousands of women listening into my show, I didn't have the confidence as a new podcaster to be able to handle the highs and the lows of that. Because when you have a lot of people listening into you, it's like you get a lot of positive feedback, but you're also going to get negative feedback, and that comes with it. But I had to be able to like grow gradually so that I could understand not to let the highs of strangers on the internet make me too, like get me too high, or the lows make me too low, where I can stay kind of in the middle of just like, I'm grateful. I, of course, would rather have people like the show than not, but I don't make it mean something about me as an actual person. And it takes time and reps to kind of get to that place where you can have a little bit of distance, where you're not so caught up that your identity is in how people that you don't even know feel about you. Like that's tricky, right? And that's where people get really like depressed, or they have this behind closed doors life that they're not actually happy with. And like the number one goal for me is like how I feel about myself when I'm by myself. That's got to be good. Otherwise, like, what the hell is all of this for? Because I care about impact, but I'm the person that I'm going to spend every single second with of every single day for the rest of my life. And you are too. So, like, that has to still be a priority, you know?
So, Kacia, how do you manage that? Because I think that's something that's really impactful in terms of when we're doing, like, even in business. I've told the story on this podcast before about, we posted one time an Instagram reel where I provided a piece of feedback about Instagram. And I got ripped into. Like, I have never experienced something like this before. And I was like, and it was so stupid because the actual feedback, I think I was honest. Like, this is something that I see business owners do that's a mistake. And people took it the wrong way, and it went ham. It doesn't matter. But what was so hard about it was I was like, these aren't even my people who are commenting on this. Like, these aren't my followers. These aren't people. Like, these aren't, like, this is a corner of the internet I somehow stumbled into. But I couldn't let that define never posting a reel again.
Right.
And so for you, Kacia, like, you've grown so much over these last few years, and you have this amazing platform, and that no doubt comes with haters. Like, it has to. Yeah. So how do you manage that?
So John C. Maxwell has a quote that says, success to me is when the people who know me best love me most. And I just keep that on the forefront of my mind, right? We're like, you know, there's this interesting thing that sometimes we don't talk about is we see a shiny goal that we're working on, and we only think about the positive things associated with that goal. But there's always problems, right? There's the problem of staying where you're at now. Like for me, like that uncomfortable feeling of knowing that I was on the wrong path, trying to shove down that feeling like whack-a-mole. Like it was so uncomfortable that it was like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. But the alternative was, okay, go for your dreams, but then know that you're going to have to deal with the problem of navigating other people's opinions or thoughts or feedback about your dreams. Which problem do you want more? Because like if we're going to look at the shiny stuff, let's look at the problems. And I'm like, I will take any damn day Sally Sue 293 on Instagram being like, Kacia, you like someone told me I sounded like JoJo Swinka on crack, who's like a YouTuber. And I was like, honestly, I think she's like 23 and I'm 33. So I will take that as a compliment that I'm pregnant and I have all this energy. But truly it's like, I'm like, which one do I want? Do I want the feeling of, for me personally, it was like sitting in the corporate world, waiting until 5 p.m. so I could clock out. And I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm dying here. Or am I going to deal with some random person that doesn't even actually know me? So it's always going back to like making sure that your life off of impacting people, off of social media platforms, off of podcasting or whatever it is, like that the main thing still stays the main thing. And it's like, I love my people that I'm close to. I have like a core group of friends that I feel like I've got such good depth of a relationship. My marriage is my like number one priority after myself. Like I'm growing a baby right now in this season of life, and I'm like, I don't care like what Roger, who's chugging Haterade in his basement, thinks. It doesn't mean that I don't feel the feels when something
Yeah.
negative happens, because I'm a human, not a robot. Of course, I would rather feel positive things from people than negative, but I can't make it like have a lot of weight to me. And I had a reel go viral that was my husband and I on our wedding day, and we were going to kiss, and he had just said his vows, and I wasn't supposed to kiss him yet, where they say like kiss the bride and groom or whatever. And I leaned in to kiss him, and this thing went viral, like 50 million, something crazy. And I was literally had my on my team, I had Jackie blocking people that were following me because I was getting the wrong type of followers. And I had half the people were like, she's got an amazing voice, oh my gosh. And then half the people were like, she's marrying him for his money. And I was like, what? They didn't even know at the time. At the time that we got married, my husband had just quit dentistry, so he actually didn't even have a job when we got married. So I was like, I'm not marrying him for his money, trust me. But it was just like, what? Like, people just come up with these ideas, and it's just like sometimes they're cooped up in their own life. And I always remind myself that how we talk about other people is so much more a reflection of us than it is of the other person. That I'm like, nah. I just kind of like bless and release, to be honest. Like, it's not that I don't feel the weight of it, but I would pick this problem over the alternatives. I'm like, well, I'll deal with it.
I love that. I love, especially this last piece you just said about picking the problem over the alternative, because even like Alex Hermosi, who I'm like definitely afraid of, like every time he says anything, I'm like, oh, it's so provocative.
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not opposed to him. And one day maybe he'll be on this podcast, but he'll be on my next list. But he is like, just him and his wife. I'm like, do you love this woman, or is she a business partner? I need to know. I need to know if you like this woman. But he was talking about how he's like, everybody you know is going to be dead in 3 decades. Like, or not 3 decades, 3 generations. So like, you're sitting around not doing what you want to do because you're fearful of the fact that these people are like judging you. And you think like, Sue from 3rd grade is sitting around at her kitchen table talking about you, and like, and when you're 95, like, are you going to be like, ooh, I'm so glad I saved my corporate job because I didn't give Sue something to talk about?
Well, and also, like, if we're really honest, isn't it kind of narcissistic to think that everyone's always thinking about us? Because, like, truly, everyone's always worried what everyone else thinks about them. And, I talk about this often on EmpowerHER, and I know you and I have connected about this, but, like, the fragility of life is such a motivator for me. I lost 2 friends at age 30, and also my husband lost his dad in July of 2021. And I just think like, and I've never been outside of my husband's like dad, I had never been with someone at the very end of their life before. And it's like, you literally will not regret the things that you did. It's the stuff that you didn't do. Like, and his dad had gone through the corporate world and done all of the quote unquote right things. And he went to retire, and he was going to go spend the rest of his life traveling. And that was cut short because he got cancer and passed really quickly. And it's like, that can be a really sad, heavy thing, but it also can be a huge fuel source that our days are numbered here and we don't know the count. So I'm not going to let somebody else decide what success is to me. And honestly, even people that I love, like there was a season in life where like my dad, he was the commander of the SWAT team, and I'd had this very linear career. And when I came to him and said I wanted to leave Google, he was like, what about your 401k? What about your benefits? And I was like, what if I don't do it? And at the end of my life, I have coulda, woulda, shouldas and regret or resentment because I lived life by somebody else's standard of success. I can't live with that. I can live with the idea of maybe I can't pay my bills and I have to donate my eggs or something. I'll handle it. And he was like, okay, let's go. And to this day, I literally talked to him yesterday morning, and he's like, Kacia, there is nothing that you could tell me that you're going to do at this point that I wouldn't believe with full, like, 100% belief that you will make it happen if you tell me you're going to do it. But 2014 version of my dad, he did not believe that to be true, right? So, like, sometimes we also have to go first, and people close to us will catch on, but we have to have a strong enough vision that we're willing to tell somebody else that we maybe really love and respect. This is what I'm doing. Watch me, believe in me, or I'm going to have to create some distance. And I was willing to do that, and luckily I didn't have to. But we have to care about our dreams. It's our job, you know?
And I think carrying both pieces. It's carrying caring about our dreams, going all in, but also not going all in without the net, like the way you were talking about earlier. And I hosted an event recently, and I was sitting with a group of women, and the woman was like, I think I'm going to quit my job. And I was like, okay, well, like, would your kids eat? Like, would you have enough money for your family? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, so what can you do on the side to make this happen, to make this dream happen, to fuel you a little bit? And let's start there and then go from there. But it's that mix of like, you can have a part of your dream, like eat the piece of the cake, without like
Yes.
buying the bakery, you know?
What I wish this would be talked about more, because I also have felt this huge pull to start talking about the idea that there's no one stream of income that's safe. That's W-2 corporate job. That's also being an entrepreneur where you're trading time for money. That's not going to always save you. Like even right now at the time that we're recording this, I'm 23 weeks pregnant. My first trimester was a total shit show. I was literally like narcoleptic. I don't even know what was going on with me. And I was like crying to my husband. I was like, if I'm always like this, how am I going to build my business? Like, how am I going to do my events? And like I was like literally having an identity crisis. And he was like, maybe just take a nap and eat a snack, which is the solution to everything when you're pregnant. But honestly, I was like, it also really fueled me where I was like, I want to continue taking active income and putting it into something else so I can grow other streams of income. So for someone listening into this that wants to be an entrepreneur, keep that W-2 job. And if you can make it work, build something on the side, to your point, Kristina. And if the job is toxic and it's sucking your soul, find another job that doesn't require a ton of your energy, have that safe income, as in like it's continuous income, and then build the dream that you really care about. And then when that dream gets big enough and you've got extra income, do like what I'm doing right now is I'm taking all active income that comes into my business. I'm investing in myself. I'm investing, like my husband and I are investing in ourselves, and then the rest of it goes into real estate. And we're building a huge real estate portfolio, which doesn't require my energy or my time or my face or my voice or me showing up to anything. So it's like, if people can get on board with this idea of how cool it is to build something on the side, always have something on the side that you're building with your main thing being the main thing, like, gosh, it just feels so freeing, because you might already be in your worst case scenario. And if that's the case, it's like, let's get another stream of fulfillment going and start to really move in that direction, knowing that your full-time corporate job could really be serving you. Don't like cave to this whole, like, I was going to say sexualizing, glamorizing. That's what I meant to say. Glamorizing entrepreneurship, and like, I guess sexualizing, kind of like making it so sexy. Like, look, I'm like working on a laptop on the beach. Like, I know that when you're working on your laptop on the beach, you cannot see your screen. I know you can't. Yeah. So like, you're not doing that. So anyway, I just think like permission to build on the side. Just yes, Kristina.
Kacia, I totally agree, especially but mostly about the screen thing. I think about that every time. And I went to an all-inclusive last year and I was like, I'm gonna like take a bunch of cute pics, and I'm like, what am I doing? My laptop's so hot, I'm so hot, these aren't cute. Like, this
and you're sweating, the top of your thighs is sweating, your laptop's moving around on the top of your thighs. I'm like, this is not fun. Like, yes, I agree.
Don't leave your job for this. Kacia, I have just one last topic I want to ask you about, and this is because I think you're an expert in this space, and I know you'll pour in. But you said earlier you were talking about in-person events, and that's something we've leaned into a lot too. Is we've been hosting women's dinners, and it was actually really cool. We when I interviewed Lindsay, I was like, "How'd you get started in all this?" And she's like, "I would host these like monthly women's dinners," and I was like, "Oh, I'm doing that." So I'm a future Lindsay Schwartz, in case anyone's wondering.
Amazing.
But it's amazing the power of the in-person. Like, it's like the connections, the conversations. I've seen amazing partnerships come from it where, I'm seeing them all give each other work and drop books off at each other's houses. And it's like so amazing to cultivate that space for other people. And so I'm curious for you, like, why you're drawn to in-person, and any advice you'd give to someone who's like thinking about in-person.
The story that you tell yourself when you're alone too much is that you're the only one going through that thing. And it's powerful to have podcasts and content that you can tap into, but there is nothing like physically being in the room, telling someone what's going on in your world, and them saying, oh my gosh, me too, right? Or how can I help support you? Like, let's do this together. And the energy, like I'm personally an extrovert, but like, so the energy of a room, there's nothing like that. It can't be curated in the online space. It just can't. And as much as I'm a huge proponent of podcasting, and I've done memberships and courses and all sorts of things like that, I'm actually really focused on making sure that everything that I'm doing has an in-person component to it too, because just getting to hug someone in real life and just like look them face to face in the eyes, it's just like there's nothing that compares to it. And I think, for me personally, when I was at that season where I had this network marketing business that was doing really well from other people's standards but was no longer fulfilling for me, I was like, I need to get around other people that get this. I need to physically get myself in a room. And I bought a ticket to an event that was in San Diego. I lived in San Diego at the time, and I didn't know anyone that was going to the event. And I was like, I'm just going to go. And I sat in the audience, and there was women that were on a podcasting panel that were talking about their podcasts. And it was like, I got this instant feeling, like this very visceral full body thing, like this is what I need to do. And I don't think I would have gotten that from just listening passively while walking my dog or when I'm in the shower or working out to a podcast. It just like, it didn't hit me like it did when I was in the room physically next to these women. I'm like, these women do not have anything that I don't have. Like if they can figure this out, I can do this too. Like now is my sign to go. And 4 weeks later, I started my show. So I think I've had that from a personal, like business perspective. And then, you know, we were even talking before we started recording about being in masterminds and being in communities. Like I've met people that look like the direction of where I'm headed, not just where I've been. And it's no offense to where I've been, because I'm so grateful for some of the friends that I've grown up with that are great connections and will be friends for forever. But I need people that are like, yep, we're going this way. Are you coming? Grab my hands. Let's go together. And I just have never experienced anything other than like being physically in the room with people that has made that be so powerful and like palpable, where you just feel like it's possible for you too, because you're sitting right next to someone. You're like, this person's figuring this out. This person's going through this too. Like, why can't I? So, I mean, honestly, like I started doing retreats and I started doing events, and I actually had even canceled all of my online programs for about 6 months because I wanted to focus so much on in-person and pop-up events and live podcasts and things like that. And it's like the best decision I've ever made, for sure.
Oh, I love that. And I think, Keisha, one of the pieces too is that I look to your events, and you're such a mentor of mine and someone who I see like you're leading the path that like I want to be down. And
Yeah.
it's amazing to see, like, it doesn't need to be a 500 person event. Like you can feel the impact with 10 people, with 5 people, with 20 people,
Yes.
and like build your network. And we've been really impressed by that. We're like, our first little dinner was 12 people. And then now
Yeah.
they sell out, and then now we're trying to find bigger venues, and it's taking time and time. But it takes that time of like, it had to be the first 12 people. I had to do it once to see how it worked. I had to see what I didn't like, what I did like. And so I think that can be really like, it can be really stifling for people where they're like, well, I don't know if I could, like, is it worth it to do for 10 people? And I'm like, absolutely. Like sometimes I'm like, even if you don't make any money, it's worth it. Just
Yeah.
be in the room and connect with people.
Well, and the thing is, like, my first like event that I did was 500 people, right? So it was a huge event, and that's not normally what people's story is. But what's interesting is from a fulfillment and impact perspective, I craved intimacy too. So like, I want both. I want the big events with like hundreds of women, but then I also want that intimate connection. And now I'm like finding myself curating so many spaces like that. We're like retreats, or even at our Airbnbs, we're doing like pop up like little events and stuff, because I'm like, I want every single size, because every single size is such a beautiful experience in itself that can't be recreated. It's so cool. And I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. For anyone starting, it's like, don't tell yourself the story. Let me wait until I get there, because the intimate connection that you can make with the small group, it's drastically different than if you're waiting until you can fill a 100-person event, 500-person, 1,000-person, whatever you want. It's like, you can have a big dream of going that direction. That's beautiful and amazing, and I'm excited for you. But like, don't wait until like you get to that point. Like I host like free meetups, and I live in Denver, you know, and I like host like free meetups at like Red Rocks for people in the community. I was like, does anyone want to come that listens into the podcast? Like, let's all connect with each other, and for total free. And it's so fun because I also love being part of it, you know, not just leading it, but being part of it.
And also, and like this kind of fits with the podcast theme in a lot of ways, is like that's an amazing way for you to be building your audience. Like, and I think about
Yes.
this even with like Lori and Lindsay. I was lucky to be in Arizona at one of the times that they did one of their like living room sessions, and the
Yeah.
entire time, and it was the one Katrina Scott was at. And I was sitting there the entire time, and I was like, the amount of people that are tagging them in photos, are posting about them, or you know what I mean, are meeting other people, they're connecting. Like that's powerful, and you're growing your network with like-minded people. And so the more that you get that opportunity to create these like that FOMO of like, look how much like fun this is, and look how great it is for us to connect. You're bringing in the next gen of people who is going to be really excited to connect with you.
100%. And that's what, if that's a big fuel source for you to actually build community, like be willing to start small and be willing to try out different things to see what's aligned for you. And I just think it's it's a beautiful way for people to connect, for sure.
Well, Keisha, first, I just want to say thank you so much. And like I said at the beginning, you were on my dream list of podcasters. And it was so sweet when I listened to your episode with Jenna, because you were like, you were on my dream list. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm one step away from Jenna Kutcher. Like this is amazing. She's on my next list. But I just appreciate you so much. And I've been lucky to see you speak in person, and I'll be joining you in Denver, which I'll give you a chance to talk about in a sec. But like, I just love your energy, and any chance to be around you and in your role, it's a no brainer. So I just want to say thank you so much for pouring into my audience.
I love you. I love the way that you show up, like just as a fully expressed version of yourself. There's no there's no doubt in my mind that you're just scratching the surface on all of the things that you're going to do here. And I'm going to be your hype girl twerking, even like twerking with my gigantic like pregnant belly that's coming, and I'm going to be like, let's go, Kristina. So I got your back, girl, and I'm so grateful for you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, and Kacia, thank you so much. That means the absolute world. And I would love for you to tell people a little bit about your event and how they can kind of get involved. I'll be attending all the way from Canada. So, and I have like a whole Denver, Canada so far, a whole Denver like week planned around coming to see you. So I'm so excited. But I'd love for you to tell people about like what they can expect and how they can get a ticket.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were talking about in person, and this particular event, it's going to be 700 women in person in Denver, September 22nd through the 24th. And what's really cool that I love about events is like, I love pop-up events and stuff, but there's something about a 3-day event that's so immersive that it takes you out of your day-to-day life, and it really puts you physically in the room where you can adjust. Because like, you know, when you go on vacation and it takes a second to like get in vacation mode, sometimes It's like the dopamine hit from like a 1-day event is helpful, but like 3 days, I'm like, it's Friday, it kicks off with a welcome party and a live podcast, and then it moves into all day Saturday, all day Sunday. It's a combination of like breakout panels. We have epic keynote speakers that are going to be attending, and it's like all of the content is really amazing, but it's really about the women in the room, because you have to find people that look like the direction of where you're headed. To find and build those connections, you have to prioritize getting in the room. And I know so many people like hear this all the time, but they're not doing it because like, what if I don't know anyone? So many people come that don't know anyone. Last year, we did our first event, and it was 500 women, and half of them had never been to an event ever. And I was like, oh my God, this is so freaking cool, because it was so transformative. And, you know, we do a lot of things to make sure that women get to connect, but there's going to be a huge emphasis on really making sure that the women there connect. And yes, I could tell you all of the flashy names of all of the speakers. You can go find it at EmpowerHERLive2023.com. But like when I'm talking about it now, I'm actually not even leading with the speakers, because it's not even the speakers. Like it's you getting yourself physically in a room and being open to not even knowing what's going to come next, but trusting that you've got this like vision on your heart, or you're connecting with this podcast or whatever it is. And you're like, I need to physically be around women that when I tell them my idea, they're like, yes, girl, I hear you. How can I help you get there? And that's what you get in these rooms. It's just like open-minded, super supportive women. I'm really proud of the community that we've built around Empower Her, my podcast, because it is very come with me. You can wear yoga pants. You don't need to get a spray tan to come to this. Like you can do whatever. You can just show up as yourself, and like you're totally welcomed here. And that's what we're all about. So I'm excited to see you. If anyone's interested, you can head to EmpowerHERLive2023.com. If you're really nervous, I also love giving pep talks, not just on Empower Her podcast, but like in DMs. If someone's like freaking out about going, like send me a DM at Kacia Ghetmiri, and I'll be like, this is why you need to be there. Let's go. So slide in my DMs.
Oh my gosh, Kacia, now I'm disappointed. I didn't like pretend I was nervous and I didn't get a pep talk from you. But now I know. Now I know.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one anyway.
Yeah, great.
I love it.
And folks, I'll leave a code in the show notes as well for you to save. I think it's $50 for your ticket. And I'm just so excited to be there. And I actually wrangled another friend with me from Canada, Sarah Janzo, who's amazing. And if you're worried about coming and you're like, I'm nervous about not having a friend there, or I've never been to an event, hit me up as well. I'd be happy to sit with you, happy to chat with you, and just excited to welcome you. Yeah, just excited to welcome you into my community too. So thank you so much, Kacia, for being here, and thank you to everybody for listening. I'm so appreciative of your time, and if you love the episode, which I know you will, I hope you share it, and send Kacia a note letting her know what resonated. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for listening to the Build Your Digital Community podcast. If you loved the episode, please don't forget to rate us and leave us a review. Now, we'd love for you to be a part of our digital community. Text JOIN to 855-908-4688 to join our text list for exclusive social media tips, or DM us on Instagram at The Social Snippet, letting us know what you loved about the episode. Keep on building community, and to this and so much more.